Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is an action comedy from the United States, English language, released in the year 2019, directed by Hans-Peter Molen, and this film is called Cold Pursuit. So Cold Pursuit is set in the snowy, secluded town of Keio. Keio is located in a very harsh environment, and so it takes a special kind of person to live here. So the community is very close-knit, and they're honouring the services of Nils Coxman. Now, Nils Coxman is a snowplow driver. He clears the roads so people can get to and from wherever they want to go, and this has gained him the award of Citizen of the Year. So he's giving a speech. We realise that he has a wife and a young son who works in an airport, and his existence seems to be very comfortable. But unfortunately, that comfort is going to be shattered when he realises that his son has been found dead of a drug overdose. So Nils never believed that his son was a drug addict, and so the wife says this is just a clear indication that you never knew your son. So there's a lot of animosity between the couple, and so Nils, he's absolutely heartbroken. But he's going to try and find out what happened. He believes, alright, well, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. So he does a bit of investigating, and he realises that his son was connected to a local drug baron. Now, this drug baron is really vicious, and he will stop at nothing to get what he wants. And so Nils holds him personally responsible. Therefore, he's going to exact his own sense of vengeance to get justice for his son, and that's going to result in a whole lot of bloodshed. So whether or not he can get the vengeance is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Cold Pursuit. Initially I just dismissed this film as another Liam Neeson movie. Now don't get me wrong, I really like Liam Neeson, but a lot of his films he seems to be typecast as this tough guy, and it's all just mindless sort of action. And so that was exactly what Taken was all about. And ever since Taken, all the quotes that, basically a guy who's on the phone saying that, oh, I know who you are, I'm going to track you down, and all that kind of stuff. And so he definitely has been typecast, which is a shame, because he is actually a very good actor. But when I saw him and this looked like a typical sort of action film, I thought, alright, well maybe this is not for me. But then I realised that Hans-Peter Molen was the director, and this is also a remake of one of my favourite Norwegian films called In Order of Disappearance. Now that was made in 2014, and that was one of the best movies out of 2014 that I'd seen. And so if you want to know what I thought of that film, please go look for the review. I reviewed it quite a few years ago, and I absolutely love that movie. So when I realised that this is a remake, I thought I definitely have to go and see it. So coming into it, my expectations were limited, is that a lot of skepticism surrounds American remakes, is that a lot of the time the culture of the foreign film doesn't really translate that well, so they take creative liberties and they kind of ruin the experience. And that's why I'm against remaking foreign classics, is that it doesn't really feel the same. But I had hope, because of the fact Hans-Peter Molen was also directing the remake, and so I thought, well, okay, this is a very good director. He has a lot of confidence, he has a lot of ability, and I was hoping that that ability would translate through and give English-speaking audiences who don't like subtitles an idea of what the original was all about and why the original is considered a classic. And I will say, after watching the film, it's not a classic like the original is, but it's definitely on par with the original. It's an indication that Hans-Peter Molen is such a confident director, because he brings his culture, he brings the deadpan humour that's very trademark of Scandinavian cinema, and he translates it through in just a very quirky way. The original was very quirky, and the remake is really quirky, and this is something that a lot of American audiences don't get, and this is something that was a risk from Hans-Peter Molen, because he's showing an audience something a little bit different. So it's not your typical sort of action film. This is a movie where it is grounded in realism on the characters and the overall theme of violence, and the overall the thought process that, okay, you've suffered a terrible tragedy at the hands of violence, but fighting violence with violence is just contributing to a bigger monster, and how destructive and how evil that can be, and how it can transform the best of us. And so Nils Coxman, he's a guy that is standing up as Citizen of the Year. He's a guy that helps people, but he's consumed by this hatred and this obsession to get vengeance for his son. And so you go on the trip with him. You want him to exact that revenge. And so you do have that sense of realism grounded within the main character, but there's caricature violence, and there's a lot of black comedy. And the quirkiness of the black comedy alleviates all that pressure, and it prevents the movie from taking itself too seriously. Therefore, the viewer is going to have a lot of fun with this movie. I thought the cinematography was excellent. It was very cruel, and the overall film was very cruel. The violence is very, very hard-hitting, but as I said, it's done in a way where you can't help but laugh and smile. And when you're smirking at certain things happening, as I said, it's that caricature nature of the violence that's not hitting you with a disturbing sort of nature. It's hitting you with something that, alright, I can relate to these characters, which makes it a little bit more suspenseful, and it's the quest of vengeance that this guy is going for that basically results in therapeutic violence and basically cathartic violence. You want to see horrible things happen to the horrible people, and that's what Hans-Peter Mullen allows you to do, but at the same time you're having a lot of fun doing it. It's not a movie that's hitting you over the head trying to depress you with that overall thought process and thought-provoking material of, you know, is violence okay to fight with? Is it okay to fight violence with violence? But as I said, it's never a discussion point. It's not something that's dictating that violence is bad. It's just using it as a method to keep it in realism, but at the same time elevate it to that level of caricature nature. And so it's a very, very fun film, and I think the fun qualities come through in Hans-Peter Mullen's style of directing. As I said, it's a very quirky film. There was more than a few occasions where I was actually laughing out loud, especially right at the end. I thought right at the end just summed up the whole film. And so it is a very black comedy, and so if you're not used to that, then please be careful. If you don't like laughing at things and you're very sensitive, then I don't believe that anything that Hans-Peter Mullen does is for you. But I just love the fact that he brings the deadpan humour from Scandinavian cinema. It's not slapstick. There's a little bit of slapstick, but majority of it is deadpan. And it's basically the culture of Norwegian cinema is being thrown into this film, and it feels like, although it's an Americanized version of a Norwegian film, it still feels like a Norwegian movie. So if you don't like subtitles, this is a perfect opportunity to actually understand why the original is regarded as a classic and why the original has been remade. And so this is one of the rare occasions where I actually applaud the fact that this is remade. A lot of remakes, they do it scene for scene, you know, shot for shot remakes, and they don't bring anything new to the table. But in this case, because it's so unique and so quirky, I love the fact that Hans-Peter Mullen doesn't steer away from what made the original so great. And so this movie has a lot of qualities that are very, very reminiscent of the original. There are a few things that are changed, but the overall formula and the structure of what makes Hans-Peter Mullen so good is there, and this is something that I appreciated the most, and that's the reason why I enjoyed Cold Pursuit as much as I did. So the soundtrack is very quirky. The way that Hans-Peter Mullen actually films some of the violence and basically the quest for vengeance, I thought was very, very strange, and so that's something I absolutely loved. So the production is very good. The script was absolutely fantastic. As I said, as far as comedy is concerned, he has a fine blend of shocking the audience, but alleviating that shocking element with that comedy that makes you laugh. And so you do have pockets where you can actually breathe, and it's not trying to suck all the air out of you and make it an uncomfortable experience. It's always a very entertaining experience, and so that was the biggest positive to Cold Pursuit. If I had one problem with the film, and that's the reason why it's a little bit less than the original, is that I thought Stellan Skarsgård, who plays the main character, was a little bit better than Liam Neeson. Now, Liam Neeson is great. As I said, I'm a massive fan of his, but I never felt as though I was watching anything except Liam Neeson. In the original, you've got Stellan Skarsgård, who played an everyday man. He was a guy that was doing a service to his community, and all of a sudden he's out of his depth. He's basically trying to get into a violent world, but Liam Neeson, I always thought as though he belonged in the violent world. I couldn't really shake the character from Taken, so I always thought that he was going to exact that revenge, and although it's supposed to be an everyday guy getting into a world of mafia and brutality, I never felt as though he was out of his depth, and so it didn't quite work as well. I felt as though the curse of Liam Neeson is that he's typecast as this tough guy, and so I really didn't see Nils Coxman. I always saw Liam Neeson, and so that was the problem with the film, but it's a minuscule problem in what was a very entertaining film. Not quite as good as the original, but right up there. So if you like this kind of thing and you want something that's definitely different from a usual action film, this is definitely a drama slash action with a lot of comedy thrown in there, then I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to like this, what Hans-Peter Mullen delivers. So overall for Cold Pursuit, going to give this one 4 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.